All right, Perk, is PG saying that Doc didn't play him in the right spots? BS or real talk? I can't tell what your answer is. It's just hard to see where you're going here. That's it?
You know what, Rachel? That's BS. Matter of fact, that's a bunch of BS. And it was a coward move by Paul George by blaming Doc Rivers for his lack of productivity and not being accountable for him not showing up on the basketball court. Because of anybody who watched the Clippers play this season and in the bubble know that Paul George wasn't just coming off of pin downs, that he had the ball in his hands. He was able to run pick and rolls. He was able to get post-ups. Do you know this past season when Paul George had the ball in his hands, it was the most ever that he ran pick and rolls with the ball in his hands in his career. And by the way, he told another lie. I'm pretty sure about this. Listen, Doc Rivers did not treat Paul George like he was Ray Allen, because you know why? Ray Allen not coming off of pin downs and missing wide open three-pointers. So I know that was a lie off the top. It was a cowardless move, in my opinion, and he should have been held. He should have held himself accountable and not throw Doc under the bus for him not performing the way he should have performed. Period.
Well, that's super strong, Perk, and I'm distracted by Richard not understanding where the camera is with his phone. Go ahead.
No, this is BS. This is the BS, and it's getting out of hand. Like, this is getting out of hand. Like, Paul George is putting himself in a position to, not necessarily to be criticized, but it's like, I have yet to hear a legitimate, like, you know what? I need to be better. I heard him say that during the postseason, and he actually corrected himself. You saw he had some really good games after struggling a little bit. He was open about struggling in the bubble. And people have given Paul George, I don't want to say a pass, because he's one of the more talented players. He's one of the best two-way players in this league. He is the reason why one of the reasons why that I picked him to win the championship. But when you start criticizing your coach on the way out, you could easily have just said, hey, look, you know what? It didn't work out. There were some things that, there was some rhythm things. But to call out pick and rolls and then people go to the stats and say, wait, you played more pick and roll here than you ever did and a higher percentage of plays, that just shows that, like, look, at the end of the day, do I believe Paul George believes this? Yes. I believe that Paul George believes that it was Doc Rivers' fault. But ultimately, Perk and I both know this. When you're a superstar, when you have your own signature shoe from Nike, you're one of 5 guys with a signature shoe by Nike. Those things aren't just given out. Those are given out to the elite of the elite of the elite. You can't shoot shots off the side of the backboard in the fourth quarter after being up 3-1 in double digits in every single game. You can't talk about the coach and the rhythm and the pick and rolls. You can't do that.
Well, you guys both talked about the numbers. Here they are. We can show them. And you're right, Perk. This was a career high for him. Plays where he finished in the pick and roll, 33%. So the numbers are just the numbers there, right? Now, organizationally, and I'm not talking about specifics with Paul George, organizationally, clearly the Clippers as a whole, at least in some part, felt that Doc Rivers had blame in what happened last season because he's the one they got rid of. So that's how you know that they held him accountable, but also sometimes the coach is the easiest one to change. I think sometimes conversations like this happen when there's too much time in an offseason. I'm not sure how this managed to happen in a short offseason, but the bottom line for Paul George or anyone else on that Clippers team is that they have to be accountable this coming season. And I think the only thing that they have in their advantage on that score is if the expectations were very high going into last season. Richard, you said you picked them, right, to win a title? I don't think those expectations are that high this season, right? I mean, you guys aren't picking them as your favorite to win the title, so they can only beat them, right?
Well, they should. The expectations should be high. The only reason why the expectations have dropped is because of their performance, right? Like, that's the key thing. It's not that somebody's injured or they lost a ton of people in free agency or they lost some. No, it's because we saw their performance or lack thereof, and so everyone's expectations have now dropped. But they are still one of the top 2 or 3 teams. If you tell me this year, with the roster that they have, if they play great, that the Clippers can win the championship, I would not be surprised. I wouldn't be like, yo, yeah, they have all the pieces there necessary to win a championship. It's just a matter of whether or not players play up to their capability. And it wasn't just Paul George. Kawhi Leonard was at fault at a lot of this, too. He had a god-awful second half and a god-awful fourth quarter. So we can't just focus in on Paul George. It was the pairing of the two.
And you know what's crazy is that some of my old coaches like Doc Rivers and Sam Cassell, some of my older brothers, my family from the Celtics, even Ty Lue would call me and Coach Rex, and say, Perk, you got the Lakers to winning the championship. That's how you feel? And I was like, yeah. For one of my many reasons is I didn't trust Paul George, and not in the crucial moments. From his history, even when you go back to Oklahoma City, I remember one game in particular. It was a closeout game in Utah, and he went, 2 for 15 from the field while Russ dropped 45. And after that, I saw his body language, and I could see it in his eyes, and I told him all season, I don't trust Paul George. And this is